Welcome back, friends. In our first lecture on this paper, I talked to you regarding the first topic of first unit, that was what is comedy, in paper CC304. In that question, we discussed the origin of comedy, we discussed the characteristics of comedy and purpose of comedy. Now, I am taking up the second topic of the same unit in the same paper. The second topic is types of comedy. Now, comedy writing, this tradition of comedy writing started with the great writers like Aristophanes, Plautus, Terence, etc., way back in 5th and 4th century BC. Of course, there were some comedy writers before them too, but these great writers established comedy form as a literary form in their plays. Now, after them, we have been witnessing different types of comedies being written by different authors, and that has continued even till today. So, we need to discuss different types of comedy, different methods, different designs of comedy in this question. Let's begin with the introduction. Comedy can be either classical or romantic in form and design. Now, this first point in the introduction gives you an idea that all the comedies written during these 2500 to around 300,000 years, they can be divided into two major groups. And these two major groups can be classical comedy and romantic comedy. They differ in their way of presentation, they differ in their purpose, and there are a number of things that we are going to discuss in the later part of this question. Now, this classical comedy follows the rules of ancient Greek and Roman masters. Aristophanes, Plautus, Terence, they were the great masters, Greek masters of comedy. But even today, there are people who write classical comedy. And number of writers have tried their hand on classical comedy during these centuries. So, they follow the great classical masters, those masters that we have named Plautus, Terence, Aristophanes, etc. The fourth point, this form was adopted by Ben Jonson and the Restoration playwrights. So as I told you, that earlier on it was started by Aristophanes, Plautus, Terence and others during 5th and 4th century BC in Greece. Later on in England, we find Ben Jonson trying his hand on classical comedy through his Comedy of Humours. And in the same way, after Ben Jonson, in the later half of the 17th century, we find Restoration comedy or comedy of manners enjoying the prime position in literary field. And this also is a classical comedy. So such classical comedies can be witnessed in English literature at different stages of time. The function of classical comedy is mainly corrective. Now, I would like to tell you that during those times when Aristophanes, Plautus and Terence and others wrote, at that time there used to be a tradition in Greece. There used to be a celebration in the honor of wine god Dionysus. Now, how did they celebrate? There used to be drama performances for a week. Every day, there used to be a performance of, or rather I would say performances of 3 tragedy dramas and 1 satyr play. Now, that 1 satyr play was a kind of comic play, which later on developed into a comedy. And the writers who wrote such satyr play, they mainly attacked the people in power during those times. Especially they attacked the foolishness, the vanity, the pompous behavior of the kings and queens and the powerful people. So intention was to show them their ridiculous face and thereby to correct them. So comedy, especially classical comedy, intended to correct the society, correct the behavior of the people in the society. And the same thing has continued even in the 17th century in the hands of Ben Jonson and the Restoration comedy writers. We now move ahead with another type of comedy. Another type of comedy is romantic comedy, or it can also be called comedy of romance and humor. Now, who is considered the main exponent of romantic comedy? None other than William Shakespeare. And most of the romantic comedies written by Shakespeare are love comedies. So, romantic comedy can also be called a love comedy. Because whatever be the story, whatever may be the incidents in the play, but the end of the comedy was fixed: marriage of the lovers. The lovers may find some difficulty during the play, but the writer arranges the incidents in such a way that at the end of the story we find union of the lovers. So it was mainly a romantic comedy focusing on love between the lovers, romance on the part of those lovers. The world of Shakespearean comedy, says Walter Raleigh, is a rainbow world of love in idleness. When we go through a romantic comedy, we can understand the caliber of Shakespeare, especially his imagination. Shakespeare seemed to have written these comedies, he seems to have painted the pictures of these comedies in a very leisure time, because he has created colorful comedies. Different aspects of life are presented. Even some imaginary things are introduced in such a befitting way that we enjoy the comedies of Shakespeare. What are the main things that we find in Shakespearean comedy, or rather romantic comedy? The chief elements of a romantic comedy are freshness of youth. Now, what is freshness of youth? The comedies deal with the lives of the young people, beautiful people, brave young people. So it is not about the grey days of old age. No, the writer talks about energetic, young, energetic people falling in and out of love, enjoying their lives at the best. Then exotic settings. In a comedy, we don't find painful real life things. No. On the contrary, the dramatist uses some imaginary lands, fairy lands, and these kind of settings where you never taste any tragic side or grey side of life. Romantic action and speech is another point that we find in romantic comedies, wherein the hero is presented as an adventurous human being who is trying his best successfully for the benefits of their love affair, for the benefit of his beloved, or just to claim his beloved. He might give certain impressive speeches as well. So in a way, it looks very beautiful. Glamour of courts. In a romantic comedy, we find gigantic courts of the kings, very powerful presentation of their powers, and sometimes there is one thing that I would like to tell you is the use of supernatural elements. Now, what is supernatural elements? You have studied in your first year in the Midsummer Night's Dream. Generally, the comedies are the plays presenting the lives of human beings. But a comedy dramatist sometimes, and especially people like Shakespeare, they use some supernatural elements like fairies, kings and queens of fairies that we find in Midsummer Night's Dream, and these superpowers play their role in a drama, and that gives a kind of touch of novelty to the audience. Shakespeare's As You Like It, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and Twelfth Night are such comedies, such romantic comedies. Now, I move on with another type of comedy following the Shakespearean comedy, and that is the comedy of humors. Who is the main exponent of comedy of humors? Ben Jonson, who came and ruled the literary field just after Shakespeare. His main area of contribution was comedy, and a specific type of comedy, that was comedy of humors. Now, he followed that classical style, classical, realistic, and satirical style of comedy writing. In his comedy of humors, we find each one of the characters is the representative of some humor. Now, at this juncture, I would like to tell you something about humors. As we know, a human being's behavior is governed by four major humors in a body. These four major humors are black bile, yellow bile, flame, and blood. Now, if a person is having balance of all these four humors, then he is going to behave in a normal way. But if there is some imbalance of any of the humors, then the behavior of that person is going to be ridiculous, or maybe people would find fault with him or her. So, according to a comedy of humor, each one of the characters is the representative of some humor. That means the dramatist arranges the characters and creates the characters in such a way that characters are presented with some fault in some of the humors, and therefore their behavior is going to be ridiculous. By this imbalance of humor, the dramatist tries to focus and attack on such people who are not behaving in a proper way in a cultured society. The comedy of humors is a timeless satire on human nature, because suppose there is some imbalance and a man has become greedy, then he would always try to satisfy his greed for money, maybe for something else. As I told you, there are four names: black bile, yellow bile, flame, and blood. Now these four humors, they affect the human behavior in such a way that if there is an imbalance of black bile, then the man becomes melancholic. Imbalance of yellow bile, then the man becomes choleric. If there is an imbalance of flame, then phlegmatic. And there is imbalance of blood, then the man becomes sanguine. Now I know these words are not at all understood by you, but we are going to discuss these words and the whole theory of comedy of humors while discussing our play by Ben Jonson, Every Man in His Humor. So at present, I leave you with this bit of knowledge. The purpose to satirize the follies and foibles, the weaknesses and vices of contemporary society. So this is the main purpose of a classical comedy. May it be written by Aristophanes, or may it be written by Ben Jonson. Characters taken from low life and represents some particular social vice or folly. Now, when you are going through a comedy of humor, you will find common people as the characters, lead characters. The comedy of humors is not about kings queens, princes, princesses. It is about common people. It is about the people that we find around. And we find number of vices or follies in these people. Same kind of five vices and follies are presented on the stage in the characters. So if some people in the audience, when they find some similarity in those characters with themselves, they would like to correct themselves. So the intention is corrective. Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humor, Every Man Out of His Humor, The Alchemist, and Volpone are the best examples of comedy of humors. After the comedy of humors, we move on with the comedy of manners, which is also called the Restoration comedy. Now, this Restoration comedy or comedy of manners developed during the age of Dryden, that was in the later half of the 17th century. And the focus of this type of comedy is mainly on the manners, modes, conventions, gaiety, and foppery of the aristocratic classes. So, this is a different kind of comedy than that comedy of humors. Here, in such comedies, the dramatist focused mainly on the manners and modes and conventions of the rich people. Their manners and modes were such that sometimes they became target of laughter. The dramatist, different dramatists writing this comedy of manners, they presented such behavior, such foolish behavior of these people, people belonging to the upper class, people belonging to the aristocratic class, and they were laughed at. So, as I told you in the earlier slides, that comedy of manners also falls under that umbrella word classical comedy. So, this type of comedy also intended to correct the society, but the target of this comedy was upper class, aristocratic class, who used to behave in their pompous manner and cut a sorry figure for themselves. Then their lives were mainly meant for gaiety, for joy, for merriment. They lived a kind of fake life. And there were people who used to follow such aristocratic people and such fopes who were mainly interested in showing off their clothes, their manners, and other things. So, such people, such characters in the society were laughed at in the drama, and they were made to correct themselves as far as their behaviors are concerned. Though the basis of the comedy of manners was narrow, yet some of the best comedies are still readable for the sparkle of their wit and interesting pictures of those days. Because comedy of manners, of course, it laughed at the aristocratic class, at the upper class, but take up any comedy by any writer during this later half of the 17th century, we find almost copy of one story in another and copy of another in some another. So they did not have any variety of plot. Most of the comedies focused on similar kind of story. But even then, there are some great comedies by some great writers during this later half of the 17th century, and these comedies are still lucid, still people enjoy reading and studying them. The great names and the great works of comedy of manners are like this. We find Etheridge's The Man of Mode, Wycherley's The Country Wife, Congreve's The Way of the World, Winebru's The Provoked Wife, Farquhar's The Buick's Stratagem, and Sadwell's The Squire of Alsatia. These are some of the best examples of comedy of manners. These comedies did not rule on the literary field for a longer time just because of their being monotonous. in all the plays. There was no variety in such comedies, therefore it did not continue for a longer time. The sentimental comedy. Now, sentimental comedy is a reaction against the restoration comedy that we found in the later half of 17th century. And just after 17th century, during the 18th century, we find this introduction of sentimental comedy. This existence of sentimental comedy can be noticed there. There is not much of laughter or humor in this kind of comedy. So, in all the earlier types of comedies, we found that the drama presents gusts of laughter during the play. But this is a different type of comedy wherein the laughter is not presented in the same quantity that used to be in the earlier comedies, because this kind of comedy is full of moralizing speeches and sermons to the audiences, and mostly it happens that some virtuous people, virtuous characters are presented in distress, in pain, and they are always shedding their tears. So sometimes the exaggeration on the part of these virtuous characters and their ever ready habit of shedding tears, it creates a little bit of humor, and that is why this is called the sentimental comedy. Of course, being a comedy, the end is always happy. All the problems of such virtuous people are solved by the end of the drama. So in that way, it is a type of comedy, and as it focuses mainly on the sentiments of the characters and thereby the people of the society, it is a sentimental comedy. It is called sentimental comedy. Some of the sentimental comedy examples are Goldsmith's Six Troops to Conquer, Richard Sheridan's The Rivals, and A School for Scandal. Of course, it is not that big a literary form or noticeable form of comedy, but it has its own place in the history of English literature. We move on with another type of comedy, and it is called farce. Now, in Gujarati, you have heard a word farce. Now, this farce and farce has almost a kind of relation between the two. This is a very low kind of comedy. Compared to the other forms of comedy, this farce is not that important form of comedy, but of course it has some value and it intends to provide laughter. So farce is a comedy based on far-fetched humorous situations. So it stuffs. If you see in the other point, the word farce comes from the Latin word to stuff, and a farce is stuffed with everything absurd. So this comedy is a package stuffed with all the absurd things, absurd characters, absurd situations, absurd dialogues. The dramatist intends to provide laughter at any cost. It doesn't matter whether the material presented in the drama or stuffed into that drama is having literary touch or this or that. No, intention is only to provide laughter. Sometimes it seems exaggeration, extravagance on the part of the dramatist. He just goes on giving free play to his imagination, his or her imagination, and the intention along with providing laughter is to satire on a certain group of people, certain situations, certain behavior of the society. It is a popular form of drama during the Victorian age, and some of the well-known works or examples of farce are The Secretary by Charlie Henry, Charlie's Aunt by Brendan Thomas, Oscar Wilde's plays, Bernard Shaw's Arms and the Man, and You Never Can Tell. Let's move ahead with another type of comedy, and the title of that type of comedy is The Mask. Now, you are aware of the word mask, mask, but this is a word with a little bit different or changed spelling. Of course, I would say that both have a kind of relation. The Mask was a kind of dramatic entertainment popular in the age of Shakespeare. So once again, we are going back to the age of Shakespeare. We have been traveling chronologically, but now we are going back to this drama, this type of drama that was popular or that was tried in the age of Shakespeare. And this drama was called, this type of comedy was called mask or masquerade because the actors wore masks or wizards on their faces. The actors had to perform on the stage but not with their real life faces. They were supposed to wear masks and represent some characters. Initially, it was merely a series of dances which also illustrated some story. So earlier on, the form of mask was just in the form of dances, and the dance also presented some story. But with the passage of time, gradually it came to be a play with a good deal of music, dancing, and scenic display. So later on, this turned out to be a full-fledged dramatic form. Ben Jonson was its chief exponent. Even Milton, during that Puritan age, wrote Comus, and it is one of the best masks in the English language. So these works from Ben Jonson or Milton, they became immortal because of their super poetry in the drama. So this is another minor kind of minor type of comedy that we find in English literature. Then there is a type of comedy named the dark comedy. Now critics have different opinions on its being called a dark comedy because the first question is whether to call it a comedy or not. As we know, the definition of comedy is that a play that ends happily. And if we stick to that definition, then of course this can be called a comedy, because these are the plays rather, which end happily. But in these plays, we find more of tragic incidents, tragic happenings, tragic action than comic. Their general tone lacks the spontaneous laughter. In a regular kind of comedy, take for example a romantic comedy or any other comedy, restoration comedy, comedy of manners, we find laughter erupting spontaneously. We find gusts of laughter during the play. But in a dark comedy, those gusts of laughter are dried up. Professor J.L. Stein used the phrase the dark comedy for such plays, and it has become now quite popular. Why did he call it a dark comedy? Because this comedy had many tragic incidents, but at the end of the story, the incidents took such a turn that everything ends happily, so everything is resolved. Otherwise, the whole drama is full of tragic incidents, tragic happenings, and it always gives us a hint that the drama is going to end in a tragedy. So, that is why it is called dark comedy. They contain at times serious discussions of problems. This dark comedy is also called a problem play because through the story, the dramatist intends to discuss some social problem and tries to provide a kind of solution to that social problem, and that is why it is called a problem play too. Shakespeare's Winter's Tale, or Measure for Measure, or T.S. Eliot's The Cocktail Party, John Osborne's Look Back in Anger, or Molière's Tartuffe, or Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, Doll's House, one of the very well-known example of problem play, or G.B. Shaw's Mrs. Warren's Profession. These are some of the great examples. Let's move ahead with another and last type of comedy that I have on my list, pun. Now, pun is not a full-fledged drama, but I would say it is a kind of a device used in a comedy. In Gujarati, we call it slash, or playing. In English, I would give you a synonym, or just to make you understand, say playing on words. So in a comedy, a dramatist makes use of pun. A pun consists of a deliberate confusion of similar words or phrases for humorous effect. So they play on words, and the intention behind this play on words is to create humor, to provide some laughter, to erupt some laughter. Puns may use multiple words that sound alike but have different meanings. That is homonymy. So there may be a word which has two meanings. The sound is similar, but they are different in meaning. And when this word is misunderstood, or the meaning of that word, the smartness of the use of that word is understood, it gives some kind of joy, some kind of laughter. Words that have multiple meanings or rely on the literal meaning with a metaphor. So pun can be created in different ways. There may be words with a similar kind of sound, that is homonyms. Words that have multiple meanings, same spelling but multiple meanings, so it can be misunderstood by the listener. Sometimes it is a use of literal meaning with a metaphor. I'll give you some examples of pun ahead. Now, sometimes the pun is used in a bad way, and this kind of bad puns are often considered to be or called to be cheesy or cheap kind of pun. I'll give you one example of a pun. A pessimist blood type is always B negative. Now, you understand this line. Who is a positive? Who is a pessimist? A pessimist doesn't see any kind of hope, any kind of success in anything. He always finds faults, he always expects something wrong by the end of the story or by the end of the day. That is why the line says a pessimist blood type is always B negative. Now one thing, B negative is a blood group. But here the author says a pessimist blood type is always B negative. So B negative is the word on which the writer is playing pun. B negative in a simple literal sense indicates the blood group, but also the B negative presents the meaning of to be negative, that is person's habit of being negative in everything. So that is how a pun plays. I'll give you one example from a well-known literary work. In Shakespeare's serious play Romeo and Juliet, Romeo's friend Mercutio, after being stabbed by Tybalt, so Tybalt has stabbed this Mercutio and he is now going to die. And at that time, this Mercutio, while he is dying, he says, "Ask for me tomorrow and you shall find me a grave man." Now, the word for pun chosen here is grave. He says, you ask for me, you look for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man. Now in this line, the word grave holds two meanings, creating a pun. One literal dictionary meaning of grave is serious. But the other meaning that Mercutio intends to convey here is a person lying under a grave, so a dead man. So if you are looking for me tomorrow, then you will not find me here on this planet, on this earth. Rather, I'll be under the earth. I'll be in the grave. So this is how pun is used in comedies. This is not a full-fledged comedy type, but it is a device of comedy that the comedy writers adopt. These are some of the major types of comedies and a device too that we find in English literature. I hope you have understood this concept of different types of comedies, and if you have any query regarding any type of comedy or anything regarding this question, please don't hesitate to contact me. Goodbye.